My name is Lena Morgan, and I don't ride anymore. Once upon a time, that sentence would have broken me. I was the girl with the silver boots and nerves of steel, the one they called fearless, focused, untouchable. I had ribbons pinned to my bedroom walls and sponsors calling before I turned 23. Horses were everything. The arena was where I breathed. Then came the fall. One jump, one shriek, one life taken. Not mine, hers. My best friend, Layla, gone in an instant. The world tilted and nothing ever felt right again. I haven't sat in a saddle since. I left the circuit, cut all ties. Took a job at Stone Hollow, a quiet, fog-wrapped rehabilitation sanctuary tucked deep into Oregon's hill country. We don't train show ponies here. We take in the lost, the broken, the misunderstood. And maybe that's why I fit in. I've spent the last 3 years keeping my head down, working in silence, feed at 6, stalls by 7, brush, clean, repeat. There's no audience, no pressure, just breath, hay, and hooves. It's not glamorous, but it's honest. And it's safe. At least it was, until they brought him in. Blaze. Even the name felt like a challenge. I heard the commotion before I saw him. Steel rattling, angry hoofbeats pounding inside a battered trailer. 4 handlers, all grim-faced. Each one bracing like they were about to unload a bomb. "He's snapped halters clean in half," one muttered, yanking his gloves on tighter. "Nearly kicked through a barn door last month," said another. "We're the last stop before they put him down." I stood quietly near the paddock gate, pretending to adjust the latch, but I was listening. Every word, every warning. Then the trailer door opened, and silence fell like thunder. He was enormous, 17 hands, coal-black with a jagged blaze running down his face like a lightning strike. His muscles twitched with rage or fear or both. His ears pinned. His eyes weren't just wild. They were wounded. He didn't bolt, he didn't rear. Yet, he just stood at the threshold, staring like he'd already decided he hated us all. "Move it!" one of the men snapped, tugging the rope hard. Blaze didn't move. Someone else banged on the trailer wall, sharp and loud. That did it. Blaze erupted. He reared up, legs thrashing, slamming the roof so hard the whole trailer rocked. One of the men cursed. Another jumped back. It took all 4 of them to get him out, and even then, it wasn't clean. They dragged him across the gravel, into the back paddock, then slammed the gate and stepped away like they'd just locked. "Up a hurricane. He's all yours," one of them muttered with a bitter smile. I didn't answer. I just watched. Blaze stood in the far corner of the paddock, foam clinging to his chest, his breath ragged. But he wasn't lashing out anymore. He was just standing. Like he was done. Like the fight had drained out of him. Or maybe he was, just saving it for later. And something inside me cracked open. Because I'd seen that look before. I'd worn that look. I didn't touch him that day. Didn't speak. Didn't try to get close. I just cleaned stalls, kept my distance, and watched him from behind the fence, like someone studying a storm cloud. Blaze didn't eat until sundown. He tipped his water over twice before finally drinking, and when darkness came, he didn't lie down. He paced, over and over, like his legs couldn't stop remembering where he came from. Later that evening, Beth, the owner of Stone Hollow, stopped by my cabin. "You saw him?" she asked. "Yeah. Mean, huh?" I hesitated. "I've seen worse." She gave me a look. "You want to take him on?" The answer should have been no, but I remembered those eyes and how they looked like mine. "I'll try," I said. Beth's jaw tensed. "If it's too much, I know when to back off," I said. She studied me, then nodded. "All right, he's yours. but something in me knew I wasn't the one doing the claiming here. The next morning, I skipped coffee and went straight to the paddock. The sun was barely up. Fog curled over the fence line. The rest of the ranch was asleep. Carried an apple in my pocket and nothing else. No halter. No rope. Just presence. Blaze stood near the back, watching me with those same fireglass eyes. I didn't speak. I didn't move toward him. I just walked inside and sat cross-legged near the fence, 10 feet away, and waited. He didn't come. He didn't leave. He just watched. For nearly an hour we stayed like that. Neither of us moving. No commands, no expectations. Just shared air and unsaid things. Eventually, I stood. My knees popped. My legs were numb. He pinned his ears, and I froze. "Easy," I murmured. "Not gonna touch you." I backed out slowly and latched the gate behind me. But when I turned to walk away, I heard it. The sound of hoofbeats behind me. I turned. Blaze was standing at the fence, right where I'd been sitting. He dipped his head, sniffed the straw, then looked up, right at me. And that's when I realized he wasn't refusing connection. He was waiting to choose it. He refused every command I gave. The first time I clipped a lead rope to Blaze's halter, he yanked his head so hard I nearly hit the ground. He wasn't spooked. He was defiant. I didn't blame him. I'd spent the previous 3 days just sitting near him, waiting, never pushing, never calling, never asking anything. I'd offered an apple on the second morning, and he had taken it, lips soft against my palm, eyes watchful. I'd called it progress, but rope, pressure, expectation, that was different. That was control, and Blaze wasn't having it. I tried the basics first. Approach and retreat. Step forward, reward. Let the rope be slack. Don't crowd him. I'd used these methods with horses a dozen times before. They worked. With the fearful ones, the stubborn ones, even the traumatized ones. Blaze didn't respond to any of them. He didn't shy. He didn't bolt. He just refused. I'd ask him to take a step, and he'd plant his hooves like granite. Ask again, and he'd toss his head, snort, and turn away. Not aggressive, not panicked, just done. As if he were saying, "I don't belong to anyone." By day 5, I was frustrated. By day 7, I was exhausted. Beth passed me in the barnyard one afternoon and raised an eyebrow. "Making progress?" I shrugged. "He tolerates me." "That's more than most get." I looked at her. "Has anyone tried just not training him? You mean letting him stay wild? Letting him be what he is?" Beth paused. "Would you want that? For yourself?" I opened my mouth to respond, and stopped, because I didn't know the answer. That night, I sat on the cabin porch and replayed the moment over and over. The pull of the rope, the way Blaze braced, the way I braced too, not against him, but against the ache in my chest that came from trying to fix something that didn't want to be fixed. The wind picked up. The trees shifted. I stared out into the darkness and whispered, "What if control was never the goal?" I didn't sleep, much. But something in me had decided. Tomorrow, I would stop trying to control him. The next morning, I left the rope in the tack room. No halter. No lead. No round pen. Just me. I stood in the paddock entrance, inhaled slowly, then stepped inside. Blaze stood in the far corner, chewing lazily on a mouthful of hay. He saw me, of course. He always did. But he didn't move. I didn't either. Walked a slow, curved line, not toward him, not away. Just near. My boots crunched softly on the gravel, my breath visible in the cool air. I stopped 10 feet away, sat down in the straw like I had the first time, and waited. Blaze turned, watching me through his mane. His ears flicked forward, back, forward again. 10 minutes passed, then 15, and then one hoof moved. Forward, then another, then another. He approached slowly, deliberately. When he was close enough, he stopped and lowered his head, and that was it. No touching, no commands, no agenda, just proximity, presence. And for the first time in over a week, my chest stopped aching. Later that day, I brought a curry comb to the fence post and left it hanging there. I sat down again. Blaze came. He sniffed the comb, looked at me. I offered my hand. He leaned in. I began brushing, gently, slowly, always from the shoulder, never the face. He stood still, eyes half closed. It felt like brushing a storm, power coiled in stillness. And I realized with a kind of wonder that he wasn't fighting me anymore, because I wasn't fighting him. The breakthrough came on day 11. I was mucking stalls, back turned to the paddock, humming some old tune I didn't realize I remembered. Blaze was loose behind the gate, not tied, just watching. I turned around to grab more hay, and he was there. Not inches away, but close enough. Closer than he'd ever come without invitation. He didn't snort, didn't tense. He just stood there. I froze. "Hey," I said quietly. "What are you doing?" He lowered his head. Not all the way, just slightly. But enough. My throat tightened. I reached out, slow as breath, touched his nose. He didn't move. "Okay," I whispered. "Okay then." I rested my forehead lightly against his and closed my eyes, and in that moment, something inside me let go. Not of the past, not of the pain, but of the need to hold the reins so tightly. Control was never what he needed. It was never what I needed. We both just wanted permission to exist. To be together, without force, without fear, without ropes. I let go of control, and he stayed. There's a moment, somewhere between trust and surrender, where you stop trying to make something happen, and just let it unfold. That's where Blaze and I found ourselves. After that morning, the one where he approached without a halter, without pressure, everything changed. Not fast, not dramatically, but quietly. Like the thaw that follows the longest winter. I didn't try to lead him anymore. I didn't tie him, didn't corner him, didn't test him with obstacles or round pens. I simply showed up. Every day. With open hands and no agenda. And Blaze stayed. He would watch me muck stalls, always from a distance. If I paused, he might come closer. Sometimes close enough to graze at my feet, other times close enough to touch. But never too close. Never intrusive. He gave me space. But more importantly, he let me give him his. And for a horse like Blaze, that was everything. One foggy morning, I brought my coffee down to the lower pasture and sat in the grass with my knees hugged to my chest. Blaze was already there, nose buried in the thick dewy clover, tail swishing lazily. He flicked an ear when he saw me but didn't move away. I didn't call to him. I didn't even look directly at him. I just breathed. There was a quiet in his presence I'd never felt before. Not in all my years of riding, of winning, of performing. Being with Blaze wasn't about proving anything. It wasn't about control. It was about consent. If he came to me, it was because he chose to. That morning, after 20 minutes of stillness, he did. One slow step at a time, he approached. Not cautiously, but like it was the most natural thing in the world. When he reached me, he lowered his head to the ground beside mine and exhaled. Long, deep, grounded. He was telling me something, so I whispered back, "I'm not here to change you." And he stayed. The word spread around the ranch slowly. Blaze wasn't a monster. Beth watched us one afternoon from the fence line and raised an eyebrow. "You're the only one he lets near." "He's not letting me," I said. "He's choosing to." She nodded. "And you're not trying to make him do anything?" "Nope." "That's new," I smiled. "For both of us." The truth was, I was changing too. There was a softness returning to me. Not weakness. Something else. Something I hadn't let myself feel since the accident that took Layla. I wasn't afraid of horses anymore. Not really. But I'd been afraid of myself. Of what control had cost me. With Blaze, I was learning how to let go. How to trust again. Not just him, but my own ability to listen, to feel, to be present without dominating. He didn't need a rider. He needed a witness. And I was honored to be that for him. A week later, I found him waiting for me. Not in the pasture, but outside the barn. The gate was open. I knew I hadn't left it. That way, and Blaze had wandered out. Not far. Just to the edge of the building, where he stood watching the door like he was looking for me. I froze on the threshold. "You're not supposed to be here," I said gently. He didn't move. Didn't shift. Just watched me with those fire-dark eyes. And something in me cracked again. Because this wasn't just a moment. It was a decision. His. He wasn't testing boundaries. He was seeking connection. I stepped outside and sat on the wooden step. He walked to me. No rope. No halter. No bribe. He stood beside me, close enough for me to reach out and rest my hand against his shoulder. I didn't. I just let the moment be what it was. He stayed for 10 minutes before turning and walking back toward the pasture. On his own. No drama. No force. Just grace. The next day, I brought a blanket to the pasture and lay in the grass near the ridge. Blaze came within minutes. He lay down too. Not beside me. Not touching. Just near. And when I closed my eyes, I could hear his breath syncing with mine. The rhythm of a shared heartbeat. A partnership built without reins, without bridles, without control. Just presence. Just choice. I whispered into the wind. "This is enough." And it was. For the first time in years. It really was. Everyone told me he was dangerous. Everyone warned me about him. From the first day he stepped off the trailer, hooves slamming, eyes flashing like gunmetal, Blaze had been labeled. Aggressive, unpredictable, unstable, some. "Horses just aren't meant to be handled," the farrier said. "You're asking to get hurt," one of the boarders added, watching Blaze pin his ears at a ranch hand who wandered too close. Even Beth, calm and even-tempered, had doubts. "He's calm with you," she said one afternoon. But I still wouldn't trust him in a storm. At the time, I brushed it off. I'd seen no signs of danger, not from Blaze, not anymore. The fire in his eyes had cooled into something watchful, wise. He was alert, sure, reserved, always. But violent? No, not with me. He let me sit beside him now. He stood patiently as I brushed his neck, even let me walk in his paddock without so much as a flick of his tail. But still, those words stuck. Don't trust him. That's the thing about warnings. They don't scare you right away. They wait until it's dark, until the wind picks up, until you're alone. It happened on a Thursday evening, just before dusk. The sky was heavy, the color of steel. The air smelled like rain and electricity. I should have known better. Storms always made the animals twitchy. I'd seen horses throw shoes in panic, bolt through fences, crash through gates. No matter how tame they seemed, thunder turned them wild again. But Blaze had come so far. I didn't want to doubt him. So when I saw him pacing along the back fence, not frantic, just unsettled, I grabbed a raincoat and headed out to him. "Hey," I called, voice steady. "It's just a little thunder, big guy. Nothing we haven't handled." He looked up sharply. His eyes were wide, and my chest tightened. It wasn't fear in them this time. It was something else. A warning. A crack of thunder rolled low over the hills, and then the lightning came. Not a flash in the distance. A bolt. Close. White-hot. Blinding. It hit somewhere beyond the trees, and Blaze snapped. He reared back, hooves tearing the sky, then spun and ran, straight through the back corner of the fence. Wood splintered like bones. I screamed his name. "Blaze!" He didn't stop, didn't look back, just vanished into the trees. Gone. Beth found me minutes later, soaked and shaking. "I need the truck," I said. "Lena, now." She didn't argue, just handed me the keys. "Radio if you find him," she said. "And be careful. Storm's not over." I nodded and ran. The forest roads were already slick. Mud pulled at the tires. Wind snapped branches from trees like they were nothing. But I drove like something feral had taken over me. I didn't care about the storm. I didn't care about the warnings. I just needed to find him. He was out there, panicked, alone, probably bleeding, maybe worse. I turned off the main road and onto the trail that led toward the ridge. Blaze loved that clearing. It was high and open, the one place where he let his guard down. "Please be there," I begged the wind. "Please be safe." I killed the engine at the base of the trail and stepped into the storm. Thunder cracked above me, but I didn't flinch. I ran. Branches clawed at my coat, rain blurred my vision, but I climbed that hill like my life depended on it. And then I saw him. Blaze, standing in the center of the clearing, wild-eyed and soaked, sides heaving. His chest bled from where he'd scraped the fence. His leg was cut, but he was standing. Alive. Stopped, breath ragged, heart crashing against my ribs. "Blaze," I whispered. He turned. Our eyes locked, and I saw the terror in him, but also recognition. He took a shaky step forward, then another. I didn't move, didn't speak. I just opened my arms. And then, unbelievably, he came. Right into the rain. Right through the wind. He stopped inches away and lowered his head to my chest. Broke. Fell to my knees, arms around his neck, sobbing into his soaked mane. "You came here," I whispered. "You ran, but you still came here." He didn't flinch. He stayed, even with the thunder, even with the pain. He stayed. We waited out the worst of the storm together. I checked his cuts, shallow, bleeding but not deep. His breathing calmed. The shaking stopped, and when the wind died down enough for me to speak again, I whispered, "You're not dangerous." I looked up into those fierce, fire-dark eyes. "You're just free." The drive back was slow and quiet. He followed me. No rope, no halter, just trust. And when we stepped into the barn, soaked and broken and together, Beth stood there waiting. She looked at him, then at me, and didn't say a word, because she didn't need to. Everyone had told me Blaze was dangerous. But now, I knew the truth. He wasn't dangerous. He was just waiting for someone to stop trying to control him. And finally, someone had. I couldn't control him. But I didn't want to. The barn was silent when we stepped through the doors. Blaze was soaked to the bone, dripping blood and rain. Yet his steps were steady, I was no better. Hair plastered to my face, jeans caked in mud, every muscle trembling with the effort of holding myself together. Beth didn't speak. Neither did I. She just nodded once and turned toward the tack room. I led Blaze into his stall, not with a rope, not with a lead, just my presence. He followed like we'd rehearsed it 100 times, calm, grounded, like he knew he was home, and maybe for the first time, he believed it. I knelt to tend his cuts, wiping the blood away with a damp cloth, my fingers gentle but firm. He flinched once, but not out of fear. He was tired and sore. But he didn't move away. He let me touch his pain. And I realized then how far we'd come. Not in distance. In choice. Because that's what trust really is. Not the absence of danger, but the presence of permission. I stayed in the stall with him for hours that night. The storm passed. The air softened. The barn lights hummed faintly in the silence. Blaze rested with one hoof tucked beneath him, his head low, his body loose. I sat beside him in the straw, my back against the wall, staring at the shadows as they danced between the rafters. Everything was quiet. But inside me, the storm was only just beginning to settle. I hadn't realized how deeply I'd been holding my breath all these years. How much guilt I carried. Over Layla. Over the fall. Over every moment I'd let fear make decisions for me. But Blaze, he didn't want to be ridden. Didn't want to be owned. Didn't want to be shaped into something useful. He wanted to belong. Freely. Fiercely. And that was enough for me. The next morning, the vet came by. Standard procedure. Beth had called her before I even found Blaze. Dr. Keller was young and sharp-eyed, with a calm voice and a clipboard she never let go of. She examined Blaze in silence, noting every scar, every twitch, every moment of tension. I stood at the stall, gate, arms crossed, jaw tight. Blaze didn't like her. He didn't rear, didn't kick. But the moment she stepped into the stall, his ears went back. She noticed. Not fond of strangers, huh? He's had enough of them, I said. She nodded, checking the cut along his foreleg. Clean. Should heal without stitches. I exhaled. But, she added, rising to her feet, you should know this isn't the kind of horse you can trust in a high-stress environment. You'll always be gambling. He doesn't live in a high-stress environment. No, she said. But things happen. Fences break, dogs run loose, storms hit. I know. And if he ever turns, he won't. She met my eyes. And then, surprisingly, she smiled. You believe in him. I don't need him to be safe, I said. I need him to be himself. She paused. Most people want obedience. I want honesty. She scribbled something on her form. Then, he's in the right hands. Later that week, I opened the back paddock gate for the first time since the storm. Blaze stood at the edge, watching the hills stretch wide beyond the property line. The sun was climbing, pale and clean. The sky was cloudless. I stepped beside him and waited. You don't have to stay, I said. He didn't move. You could run. You're fast, strong. You don't need fences. Still, he stood beside me, silent, present. And then, slowly, he stepped forward. One hoof outside the gate. Then another. He stood there, halfway between freedom and familiarity. I didn't stop him. Didn't call him back. Didn't need to. Because a minute later, he turned around and walked back through the gate, right to me. He bumped my shoulder gently with his muzzle, like a promise made without words. I know, I whispered. You could leave, but you didn't, and that makes all the difference. Beth joined me that evening as I watched Blaze graze by the fence line. She didn't say much, just leaned on the post and passed me a mug of tea. I thought, "He'd kill someone," she said bluntly. "Me too," I admitted. She sipped. "You did something no one else did." "What's that?" "Let go of the idea that he had to become anything." I watched Blaze lift his head, ears flicking as the wind stirred his mane. "Maybe he already was something," I said. Beth smiled. "You going to try and ride him?" "No." "Ever?" I thought for a moment, then shook my head. "He's not mine to ride." "And you're okay with that?" I turned to her, smiling softly. "I couldn't control him," I said. "But I didn't want to. I walk with him now. Not because he needs exercise, but because I like hearing his footsteps beside mine, solid and strong. Some days he leads, other days he follows. We stop when he wants to stop. We run when the wind tells us to. Sometimes I just sit with him in the pasture back against his side, eyes closed to the sky. And he stays. Not because he has to, because he wants to. And that is more powerful than control will ever be."